Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Relationships Rule. I'm very excited about my guest today. He is a multi-platinum singer-songwriter with 5 top 10 hits and also a keynote speaker. He's not a former musician. He's a existing musician. He does both at the same time on the same stage, keynote speaking, singer-songwriter. I love it. He's toured with Bruno Mars, OneRepublic, and Train. He's played arenas and dive bars, and what he's learned from all of that is this, and I love this: your results reveal your character every time. And that has become the insight for his HYDA theory, which we'll get into, a framework built on one simple idea. How you do anything is how you do everything. It's a diagnostic as much as it is a motivation tool, and it changes how people show up at work, at home, and everywhere in between. His keynote concerts blend live music, personal storytelling, and real frameworks. Audiences don't just leave entertained, they leave with something they can actually use. So I would love you to meet him, Andrew Allen. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Hi, Janice. Thanks so much for having me.
You're very welcome. And Andrew, as I was reading that, and I'm sorry I had to read it, but I did, I was thinking back to when I first met you. I think it was like in a backyard concert that you did many years ago in Richmond, BC. And what I remember is you had that aura about you then when you were just doing singer-songwriter. You were not doing the keynote speaking back then, but you had that aura about you that you cared about people. Your writing even, shows it. The songs that I grew to love and became part of my my playlist. And I think it's just a natural progression for you as you've gotten more mature, as you become a father and start to see things from a different lens. Am I right or wrong?
Well, I appreciate that so much. It's been an interesting journey, but a wonderful one for me to have. I feel very grateful that I've had the time and space to reflect, because as a musician, my whole sort of journey in the creation of songs and writing for other people, you have to constantly be looking inward or outward or wherever you need to look to try and find that inspiration. And then you condense it into 3 minutes and 50 seconds with a lovely melody. And you try to encourage people to maybe live differently, or maybe you try to give them the words that they didn't know they had to be able to share what their experience is. When people share songs, they go, this is what I'm feeling right now. This is how I'm, going through this emotionally. And because of that time and that space and that practice, outside of songwriting, I was always thinking and trying to understand, how life works. Why do we connect with one another? What are these underlying themes that exist? And I always used to joke with people that my journey as a musician would have me sleeping in truck stops and playing at the homes of millionaires. So it was like I was constantly just weaving in between these spaces of life. And that's the beauty of art. And I think, I really do appreciate that, the idea that you got of me then. My desire to connect with people has always been the highest priority. It just so happened that music was my vehicle to get me there.
Yeah, that's great. It just flashed in my mind back in the days of me going to concerts back, a long time ago. And I absolutely adored the music of Van Morrison.
Okay.
And Van Morrison, a great storyteller, this writing. And I went to see him in concert at the Queen Elizabeth Theater.
Oh, wow.
And he spent the entire concert with his back to the audience, probably stoned out of his mind because it was that era, and not relating to the audience. And that always stuck out in my mind, that was he there for himself or was he there for the people? Because it changed my feelings about him, so it's like when someone can relate and really, relate to their audience and show people that they're interested, it doesn't matter what you're doing.
Mhm.
That to me is so important. It's all about relationship, and you have to build that with your audience. You can't do it with your back to them,
No, I don't think so.
Right? Right. So you've been take us back to how the journey began. Like have you been singing what like as a kid, or how did it all begin for you?
Yeah, I was singing as a kid. I wasn't good. Um, and most people that heard me in those in those
Early
years would have
days. Yeah.
agreed. The first time I ever sang, I think, was at a wedding when I was 10 years old or something silly.
Okay.
Singing, I never really pursued singing, I guess. I was
Right.
in piano lessons when I was like 5 years old, 6 years old, continued playing music. I didn't like the practicing side of it. And more often than not, I would sit down at a piano and I would just try to make my own stuff up. And
Okay.
it kind of drove my parents nuts because they'd be like,
Did you
"What?"
play by ear?
Yeah, mostly.
Oh,
Yeah.
lucky you. Yes. Okay.
I mean, that being said, it's kind of like the fundamentals of learning an instrument are kind of like the fundamentals of learning a language. So, I speak by ear as well, but um, so I think that growing up, I was very creative and wanted to come up with my own material. And so I would write my own songs and do my own thing. Eventually, I learned how to play guitar. And partially because it was a smaller instrument, I could take it with me instead of a piano. And then
Yes.
I just often used the instrument to back me up as a singer. And it
Okay.
was only when, I guess it was like in 2008, I finally was like, I'm going to pursue this thing. Like I was in bands and stuff, and never once really even thought about my singing. I just sang into a mic and it was very loud and nasally.
Yeah.
And if I wanted to sing a punk rock song, I'd probably sing with a British accent. And if I wanted to sing, I'd like change the way I sang. It was very, I mean, I guess, it was
That's
young.
cool. Yes.
Um, but finally, when I decided, I'm going to do this, I'm really going to do this. I sold everything I had, bought a minivan, and just started touring and toured Canada back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then went to the UK and toured back and forth there, and then came back to Canada
Oh,
and back to the UK. And at some point along that journey, I wrote a song that I thought was pretty good. And so I hired a producer that was pretty well known at the time to produce it. I figured out, okay, this is how you release it to radio. So I put together an independent radio campaign. The song came out and it did okay. It didn't do amazing. But what it did do is it gave me kind of a platform to jump off of to book shows because I had now radio play. So I could call venues in different parts of the country and say, this is what I've done. Can I play at your venue? And when I would go to these different venues, I would reach out to different people in those cities. And one of the people that I reached out to was like a big record executive in Toronto. He came out to the show. Like I was so surprised that he even came. And the funny thing is that my public show in Toronto was the third show I played because I had played 2 house concerts leading up to that show.
okay.
And at those 2 house concerts, I said, there might be a chance that this really important person is coming. So if you could support me by coming to the public show, that'd be
Yeah.
amazing. So this guy comes to the public show. He's never heard of me. He's never had me, I'd never played in Toronto. And I had like 60 people in the room and he's looking around at them and they're everything from 70-year-olds to 20-year-olds. And he's going, I don't understand why this is happening. And
Huh.
I wasn't going to tell him, but he,
Sure.
he
Yeah.
was interested. And I remember we had a conversation after my show that night, and he said, if you want to be like a pop singer, get in line. Everybody does. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that was pretty discouraging. He
Yeah.
left. The next morning he called me and he said, Andrew, I need you to come into the office today to meet with my boss. And I said, why is that? And he said, because I'm not generally a very happy person. And I woke up this morning happy. And I'm not sure why, but I think it had something to do with your concert.
Oh, interesting.
I said, okay.
Yeah.
So I went in to meet the other guy, and the other guy again gave me some not great news where he was like, yeah, your voice isn't really memorable and whatever. I'm like,
Oh
you guys are
gosh.
just so positive and uplifting.
Yeah.
But he said, I think you might have something. So I'm going to send you to Nashville and I want you to do some co-writing. And I went to Nashville and I co-wrote a song. It was the first time I ever co-wrote a song. And that song was Loving You Tonight. And
Oh,
when
I love that song.
when I came back to Canada, I was like, I feel this is a pretty good song. So I went and recorded it with a different producer, again, released it independently to radio, but I kind of understood the game at that time. And it came out to all the radio stations and it ended up blowing up and going top 10 for like 32
Yeah.
weeks in a row.
It
So
was a
good.
great song.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a great song. Interesting though that and so typical that they're so negative around, but but it was it was meant to be for you to learn,
I think
right? To
so.
learn what what it was like, but it's hard when you're young. So you you came out on the radio, you came out as a pop singer, but you're a singer-songwriter. You wrote the song, or you helped write, or you
True.
co-wrote the song.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it's funny because if we talk pop, pop music back in the day was the Beatles. And now if you were to put the Beatles out on the radio, they would not be pop music, right?
Right.
It wouldn't be comparable to what we see as pop
Yes.
music. So in, 2010, when my song Loving You Tonight came out, Jason Mraz, Colby Calais, Gavin DeGraw, all those guys were out and they were all
Yes.
pop singers.
Yeah.
And so I was technically a pop singer. And so
Yeah.
singer-songwriter sort of would typically put you more, like if I was to be, hey, this is Andrew Allen, the singer-songwriter, that would have kind of put me more into the folk world.
Yes, it would. You're right.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was like, we still had like electronic drum beats under the songs, but no, I was still writing the songs. I
Yeah,
just,
I get it.
yeah.
So I know that you also then got more into songwriting, right?
Mhm.
And you not just for yourself, but for other people, and you've made a career from that too.
That's true. Yeah. When Loving You Tonight blew up, I got a lot of interest from some record labels in the States as well as a publishing company. So I ended up signing a publishing deal with Sony ATV at the same time as I signed a record deal with Epic Records. Sony put me in rooms with all sorts of people to write songs, and it was a fantastic time, like just to see how different people, because it
Sure.
was never, I just wrote songs for me. I had never written songs for other people, and it was, it's wonderful as a creative to get insight from somebody else's life and then help them shape a song around that. So you're not just going from your own personal experience, you're getting to, hey, oh, that's interesting. Let's talk about that. How does that land? And how do we, get that emotion out so that we can land it in a song? So it was a fun experience.
What was your most um, proud moment of working for someone else? What happened of that in that career that was your best moment, or is your best moment? I assume you're still doing it.
I
'Cause
still
I
do.
know,
Yeah.
you're an entrepreneur. You're doing
Yeah.
all sorts of things.
Oh man, that's a great question. I had a few great experiences. The songs didn't necessarily like go anywhere. There was some that did. Like I remember this guy, Matt Simons, came into my house. He was from New York, but he was signed to a record label in Germany or something like that. And he came into my house when I was living in Los Angeles, and he had a keyboard and he set it up, and the two of us just started cranking away on this song. It kind of just came very effortlessly. And he somehow got that song into the hands of this guy named Marco Mengoni, who is an Italian superstar. That guy ended up putting the song out and it went quadruple platinum. And I was like, and half of it's translated to Italian. And I was like, what is happening? This is sort of a weird experience. But
yeah.
One of my favorite experiences, though, is I worked with Meghan Trainor before she was an artist.
Before she got skinny?
Well, but she,
yeah.
But as when she first was coming out, she wanted to just be a writer. And I remember getting into the room with her and hearing what that girl came up with. Like, she is so, so, so talented and has such a cool energy and a vibe to her. And then she was producing the song herself. And I was like, you're incredible. Like, with the stuff that you're coming up with is incredible. And from what I understand, the story went that she wrote all about that bass, tried to pitch it to Beyonce. Beyonce didn't want it. And so L.A. Reid, who was the CEO of the label, was like, you should release it. And she's like, okay. And so I find knowing some of these people, especially in the pop world, that a lot of people are like, probably like, oh, they don't write, or they didn't come up with that herself. It's like, no, she's the real deal. Like, she actually knows what she's doing. She's really talented.
And I'm sidetracking already still, but one more thing I want to say about that industry, about that. I've been watching and following a guy who I think is so talented and so like out of this world is Charlie Puth. Charlie Puth? Puth. Charlie Puth. He's like brilliant with his music ear. It's more than that.
Pitch.
Yeah, he's like he's one of a kind. Like, he's a prodigy kind of kid, but not a kid anymore. But to watch him build a song, the music of the
Yeah.
the melody of a song. He did it on Jimmy Fallon, I think,
Yeah.
one night with him, making silly sounds, and he'd put it onto his keyboard and he'd do this line. He's unbelievable.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
He's very, very talented.
Yeah. And I actually saw him with a kid who looks up to him, and this kid has the same um, talent,
Okay.
and started to challenge Charlie, and to they'd make, I guess they'd say a sound, and they'd each say what key it was or whatever. And the kid was blowing him away. It was amazing. So
That is really cool.
anyway,
Yeah, that's a unique talent. That's not one that I have.
totally. Yeah. Okay. So we've got the music career in many capacities because you are entrepreneurial. It's obvious. It's just obvious. Okay.
Yeah.
So mind you, I do know one set of your parents, and they're pretty entrepreneurial. So somehow the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, I must say. Don't know about the other side of your parents, whether they are as much, but the ones I know, definitely.
Yes.
Okay. At what point did you start to see that your experience in music was teaching you something bigger about life and business? We sort of touched on this, but when did you have this aha moment, if you had one, or that you started testing this the newest part of your career?
I've always been fascinated by human behavior, and I love, some of the stuff that I guess I probably find on social media and stuff is life hacks, ways to make life better or easier. And it was in that moment, but a moment meaning in that year where
sure.
I started to dive into the idea that how do we make our lives better? When you see different people and it's really easy from an outside perspective, looking at somebody else, go, why don't they just do this? Why don't they just change that? It would be so much easier for them if they would just understand this.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to look outward. And actually, I had a conversation with a friend on my way to Vancouver, and I was running late getting to his house. And I called him and I said, I'm so sorry, I'm stuck in traffic. And he jokingly said, you're not stuck in traffic, you are traffic. And I was like, huh? And he did not mean to be that prolific when he said it.
Yeah.
I took it internally and was like, you're absolutely right. So in my sort of want for other people to be able to experience a better life, or if you can see the little things that were kind of if they just change that, I all of a sudden turned that lens back around on myself and was like, Andrew, dig into your own life and see what it is that caused all of the things that you've created. And when I started kind of with my results, okay, where am I at right now? Mm-hmm. And that brought me back to the actions it took to get to those results. I was like, but what inspired those actions? And while I was digging into that whole process, there's a whole bunch of information out there. And some of it I think is really muddy. Some of it's really confusing. Some of it's if you just think about a good thing, it'll happen. And it's and there's certain truths to all of them.
Yeah.
But I worry that this is a physiological reality, is that we always try to find the easy way. As babies, we breathe with our diaphragm, really rich, deep breaths. It's amazing. And if you see a baby lying in their crib, they're big breath. And it's so good. All that, blood, dense oxygen and everything, or oxygen rich blood, everything going through their bodies is amazing. As we get older, we shorten it. We just start to breathe out of the
shallow
top.
breather. Yeah.
That's right. And as a singer, obviously, I have to go deep into the diaphragm to be able to get the notes.
Right.
And just knowing that we always find the path of least resistance. The self-help books and stuff that are if you just do this, this will work. Here's the life hack, this will work. But that never lasts. They say January 21st, I think, is it's the National Quitters Day. It's 3 weeks in.
Resolutions are done by then. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was there's a lot of quirky things that I feel like I do, and I wanted to understand why I did them.
Okay.
And so I would say that I don't know that it was it wasn't an exact moment. It was a span of time when I was, I guess, kind of reevaluating my participation in the music industry and going, how do I line up? What do I say? What do I still want to share? Mm-hmm. I was in a new space in life, in a new marriage, in a new, a new home, everything. Things were just very different. I was like, this is a great opportunity for me to kind of reinvent myself. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, so that's, I would say that was kind of the year-long process, and what it revealed to me was phenomenal.
So I remember going to a personal development course back when I was probably in my maybe around 30. I was around
Okay.
30. And it was a 3-day weekend thing. And a friend of mine had a ticket and said, you should go. You need this right now.
Mm,
Like go do
yeah.
it. And when I walked into the room, there was this big sign across the stage and it said, what are you pretending not to know?
Hmm.
Wow. That kind of went, what? But when
Yeah.
you think about it, what am I pretending not to know was kind of the starting point for the exploration of looking inward
Mm,
for yourself. And so I always remember that because it was so profound.
yeah.
Okay, so you talk about the idea of, you call it your HYDA, how you do anything.
Hmm.
And tell me about that. Where did that insight come? And you do I think it's a weekly newsletter.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to this is your platform to get, this is your build your list thing,
Yeah.
to show people what you're about and what you believe. So how did this all come to be? Because that's what actually, right?
Yeah.
I get your newsletter, and one day I went, oh, I think that I need to talk to Andrew because this is like a whole other thing
I
and it
love
would
that.
be kind of fun. And of course, my relationships rule is all about relationships. And
Yeah.
that's what I was seeing in your newsletter. So
I
go
love
ahead.
that.
Yeah, tell me.
So, I heard the mantra, how you do anything is how you do everything, and it just landed. Like it just
Yeah.
stuck with me. And I was like, oh my goodness. And I started to use that. This was years ago, like years and years and years ago when I started off in the music industry. And it always kind of resurfaced, and it would remind me when I wanted to, like, you know, shorten a task, or like, I don't know, I'm just gonna, maybe I just
Yeah.
won't do that. But I'm like, no, Andrew, how you do anything is how you
That's
do
right.
everything.
Hmm.
But that for me was always like a moving forward action statement, right? It's like, okay, I need to do the dishes, because if I don't do the dishes, I'm not really a clean person. Or if I do that, like what it, and really, really like trivial things.
Yeah.
When I started to look at how results expose or reveal your actions, and then I hit on the point where it was like your actions are driven by your character. And I'll get more into that, but
Hmm.
identifying that the concept, how you do anything is how you do everything, suggests that even the smallest tasks
Hmm.
expose the bigger tasks, right? They say, hey,
Hmm.
this is, if you're going to do it little like this and you're going to do it well, you're probably going to execute the bigger tasks well also.
Hmm.
So that gave me the insight that, like, if your character is driving your actions and your actions are driving your results, then the work that we do should not be on how do I do better actions. It should be how do I show up with better character.
Right.
But the
That's
funny thing was for
beautiful.
me is that it's one thing to get to character and you go, okay, I just got to, identify my character, which is easy to do if you look at your results, because your results don't lie. Even if people think that,
Yeah.
they're like, no, 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 I totally, I don't, like, I remember this after, I can't remember what it was. I was like, I'm going to stop drinking wine.
Yeah.
Just, and then I looked in the recycling bag like 2 weeks later and I was like, where did all these wine bottles come from? This is crazy. Somebody else must be putting
Yeah.
them in my recycling. No, it's you, Andrew. So,
Yeah.
okay, I understand results do not lie. They can absolutely reveal your character.
Yeah.
But then it got me to a place where I was like, well, where did my character start from? How did
Okay.
my character come to be where it is? And when I dove into that, that's what I found was fascinating. So we've already talked about the music career and my desire for connection, but
Hmm.
those were the results, right? I connected with people and I was on stage and I had this music career that allowed me to do so. But what drove me to do that?
Hmm.
And it was my character, but what
Unique
started, like
character.
what made
Yeah.
my character
Yeah.
that way? Well, it turns out that if you look back far enough, you can see the intentional and the unintentional decisions that you made all along the way, which were creating your character. For me, when I was born, and you know this story, when I
Hmm.
was born, I was given up for adoption.
Hmm.
In that space and time, a child develops something called a fear of abandonment.
Right.
And even if, even like I have a wonderful relationship with my birth family and a
Hmm.
wonderful relationship with my adoptive family. And to me, they're just all family. But
Right. And you're very lucky that that was the case, right?
Yeah,
It's very
I'm
fortunate on all
absolutely,
sides.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But
It could have gone
knowing
differently.
it could have, but knowing that I have a fear of abandonment and then looking back on that and going, what do children with fears of abandonment do? Well, either they self-sabotage relationships because they don't want to get hurt again.
Wait a second. Stop for a second. When did you find out?
I went to counseling like when I was like,
how old were you when you found out that you
oh,
were?
that I was adopted.
Yeah.
Oh, I knew
right
all
when you.
along.
Oh, you knew. Okay.
Yeah.
You weren't as soon as you were old enough to understand, you mean that's when you knew?
Yeah, it was always shared with me. Like it was never a question of like,
right. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then that fear of abandonment develops without unintentionally, you're saying.
Well, so the fear of abandonment, it's not that it develops one way or the other, it's just in there.
Okay.
But what it can do is it can inspire two different sort of paths. One, you're either going to go, I'm going to shut down. I don't really want to have relationships with people. The other side is I desire connection.
Yeah.
I want people to see me and hear me and want to know me.
Right.
So then transfer that into, hey, what kind of career could I have?
Right.
So I remember sitting at a piano at a friend's party and I was playing Disney songs and everybody was surrounding a piano and they're all singing along. And I was like, this is magic. To me, this feels incredible. I never want to lose this feeling. Then you move past that, sorry.
Yeah.
I was a very fearful kid as I was growing up.
Okay.
And so when I was about 12 years old, my parents, they were saying, hey, you know what? There's this summer camp. You should consider going. And I was like, that sounds like a horrible idea. I'm afraid of everything. I don't want to be away from you or anything.
Yeah.
My younger brother, though, he was 8 years old and he was not afraid of anything. And he said, I'm going to summer camp. So it took me about 2 weeks. I came back to my parents and I said, hey, I've changed my mind. I want to go to summer camp. And they're like, well, it's too late. Like you can't. And bless you.
Please. Sorry. Yeah.
And I was so disappointed that I couldn't go to the summer camp. Then fast forward another 2 weeks, my parents say, hey, guess what? We heard of this new summer camp that's opening up and we're really excited and we think you should go to it. And I was like, you know what? I want to go. And they're like, okay, great. And you're going to go with your good childhood friends from, where we grew up. They're going with you. So you're going with your buddy John, his little brother Ian, who you're all like, you guys are good friends.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, great. So to fast forward this story, we go to the summer camp. It's not really the greatest conditions. It's like, we're sleeping in tents. It's all kind of like a forestry camp.
Yeah.
And then on the Wednesday, we are planning a skit behind a row of buses and there's a hill behind us. And out of the blue, randomly, 6 p.m. on a Wednesday night, a tree falls. And the tree hits me and a piece comes off and it hits Ian and it kills Ian.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And so I am now 12 years old, lying in the dirt. I've just witnessed my friend pass away. I have a hole in my leg. He's being airlifted. I'm being taken out by ambulance. And in that moment, not in that moment exactly, but coming out of that moment, through the healing process, I had another decision to make. Am I going to be afraid of life or am I going to pursue life? And when I was like, I'm pursuing life because he only got 8 years. I'm not willing to waste a second of this. Again, fast forward then to a music career where you've got to give it absolutely everything.
Yeah.
That didn't seem like work to me. It just seemed like I was pursuing this incredible adventure of being out on the road and playing music and connecting with people. All of those incidents that happened, they forced me to make a decision one way or the other because we don't control everything, but it's not the same as we control nothing. We control our response.
Sliding doors.
That's right.
Sliding doors. Yeah.
That's right. And so
that movie?
What's that?
Have you seen that movie?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a bunch of years old now, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I have been.
Yeah. Okay.
So that was the whole journey that I've kind of gone through in recognizing like, okay, there's these decisions that you're faced with. And when you're really young, obviously you're not consciously making that decision. But as you get older, that's what got me so fired up is that we do get to make a decision on how we want to form and change our character. And if our character is trainable, which it is, then instead of focusing on the habits or the actions or the life hacks or the results we want, we need to first step back, expose or reveal our character so that we're able to identify what it is that we love that we're doing and the things that we're like, oh, I'm not really stoked on that. How do we change that?
Okay. So fast forward to today.
Yes.
And you're now going out on the road still.
Yeah.
But now you're going on stages and and you're delivering this message that you've just talked about,
Yep.
really,
Yep.
through your music and through your keynote
Yeah.
and kind of putting them together. So who's the audience now? Who have you, if you've done any of these experiences so far,
Yeah.
or what you see that you're doing, how is that going to play out, or how does that play out? Who's the audience? And I mean, it's an inspirational piece. I feel that it
Yeah.
is, but it's also educational.
Right.
Is it interactive with the audience?
It is in part. So
Okay.
the thing that I've noticed is there are a lot of corporations and associations out there that really do value their employees or their members, and they see them in the light of like, we would love for you to have more company culture. We would love for you to be more accountable or more responsible for the actions that you take inside the company. Or on an even bigger level, they're like, we really want to be a company that supports our employees' mental health. And we want to be able to say to them, hey, like, look, we care about you and we want to give you some insights and frameworks to help you live a better life.
Yeah,
Those
so
are the
they're
type of
building this
companies.
culture. They want to build this culture in their business
Yes.
and have their employees love working there and become better people along the way, and help them to do so.
Well, and in your world of relationships rule, the way that we
Mhm.
develop better relationships is through accountability, through honesty, through trust,
Right.
through, right?
Right, exactly.
And
Trust being the big one, I think.
exactly. And so
Yeah.
when we root our character in trust and in
Mhm.
truth
Mhm.
and in accountability, recognizing like I was reading The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People,
Mhm.
and he breaks down that word responsible and how he breaks it into 2 words. And he goes, it is your ability to respond. And sometimes
Mhm.
that's all you're able to do.
Mhm.
And I was like, that's so phenomenal, because we as humans always want to control or fix or change or whatever.
Yeah,
We don't always want to take responsibility for our actions.
true.
And yet that's literally the only control we really have.
Yes,
And
that's very true.
yeah. And so for me, that's how it lands for corporations, is if they see and understand the value of trainable character and understand that that's how you're going to achieve better results, both in relationships as well as the results of the company or the organization that you're trying to
Mhm.
that you're trying to.
Yeah, own what you do,
That's right.
and, yeah, it's funny because I was just talking to a gentleman earlier today, and he's, written a book called The Living Organization,
Mm,
and he's all about the same thing in his own way, and, of teaching, um, corporate leaders how to build organizations based on, relationships.
that's so good.
Yeah, and so it's really quite similar in its own way. So how do you bring your music into your keynotes?
That's a great question. Yeah, it's not a keynote with just some music at the end where you're like, oh, I'm just going to
Okay,
play
well,
some
that's
songs
what I
now.
would think, right? It is. That's what
No.
I would think. Yeah.
The way that I have done it is I love bringing people through the visual and the physical story. So in order for me to say, hey, you know what? I did this with my life as a musician. And when I would be in radio stations
Mhm.
trying to encourage them to play my song on the radio, this is what they would ask me. But instead of me showing a clip of me playing on a radio, I'm like, I'm just going to play the song for you. So then I play that song. Then there's another song that really catalogs these 3 stories that I share that are vulnerable
Okay.
experiences. There's
Yeah.
also a spoken word piece called Unbecoming
Oh,
that
oh, I feel like I've heard that. I
you
don't
probably
know
have. I
why.
put it up on Instagram.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and it's very much the sort of the flip of like, instead of trying to become something, a lot of the times we need to strip off all the baggage and the
Hmm.
things that have been placed on us and the
Hmm.
identity that we've taken on that isn't ours, and remove it. So it's
Hmm.
essentially unbecoming.
Hmm.
As well, I'm a loop artist. So that means I record using a loop pedal. Same
Yes.
with Ed Sheeran, where it's basically like you hit record and you play something and it immediately starts to record you. And then as soon as you stomp on it again,
It plays
that
it
plays
again.
back and you can stack on
Yes.
top of it. So similar to building your character on a base level,
Yes.
as long as you get that first part right, you can stack on top of it and create something meaningful.
Ah, that's very good.
And then at the very, very end, usually we do something that's a little more interactive and upbeat and fun, and
Yeah.
it encourages people to sort of step outside their comfort zone and go, "Hey, you know what? If I'm actually going to, because we don't develop our character by saying I'm going to be courageous, so I'm going to go jump out of a plane." It's
Mhm.
like, no, I'm going to be courageous, so I'm just going to tell one truth every day that's hard. Or I'm going to be courageous by being the first one up to dance. Or I'm going to, the little things.
Mhm.
And the last song is typically that encouragement of, hey, I would love for you to participate in this next one. And usually it's a really great opportunity for people to connect and go, hey, this feels good.
Yes, and what a wonderful way to have people leave your presentation because they're happy,
Mhm.
they're feeling good,
Mhm.
and and they walk away saying that was the best. I can see it. I can just see it. I love it.
We have a lot of
So
fun.
so how do you how do you just a second. You should how do audiences find your music? Okay, so I don't know if if you've answered this, but how do you notice that audiences respond differently when music is part of the message?
I think that all of us have different ways of learning and different ways of processing.
For sure.
And
Mm.
and I think that by adding a musical or artistic element in the middle, it allows room to pause and to breathe and to just kind of go, I think I'd like to think about what I just heard. I think I'd like to, process internally a little bit about what I heard. And so, or you've heard all the words and it's kind of jumbled in your head. And now all of a sudden I'm going to reiterate it with music and you go, oh, okay, I get it from this because this made sense. So that's how I think it lands differently. I also think there's something interesting. Like I've been to a lot of different conferences and such, often hired as just a musician, and I've seen
Mhm.
that they'll often bring in like an athlete or something, right, to speak. And I think that athletes are a great example of, resilience and consistency, and all of those things are so valuable. The funny thing is, though, is that if you are the fastest runner, you are the fastest runner. It's not subjective. It's like, no, you actually are faster than everybody else. Whereas
Mhm.
if you are the best musician, it doesn't mean anything. It means something, but it doesn't mean that you are necessarily going to be like there are probably 40 other Charlie Puths out there that all
Yeah.
have perfect pitch but maybe people don't like the way they look, or they don't like the way like the songs they wrote, or they don't. So
Or he
there's
didn't have, or they haven't had the same where, um, circumstance meets opportunity, the
that's right.
same luck, right? That
Yes.
that he's had. Yeah.
Exactly. But that I think then also speaks to corporations and people who are maybe trying to climb that corporate ladder, or they're in an
Mhm.
association where they're like, oh, I just want to get to this next stage and I'm finding it really difficult. And it's like, I'm not here to tell you that the harder you work, the better chance you have of getting there. What I'm saying is that at the base level of your character, become somebody that you're proud of. And then whatever happens is going to be awesome. And then I think when you pair that with music and you go, see, I'm telling you, like not everybody's going to love my songs, but
Yeah.
hopefully right now in this moment, you're able to see that like, okay, that guy tried real hard and he made a career for himself in a really weird industry. And now he's playing some songs for us and it gives us a moment to process.
Yeah, that's interesting. I heard something on Instagram. It was Simon Sinek was
Yeah.
interviewing this guy, and it was just a little clip. So I don't know. I think this guy maybe wrote a book about John Wooden. Do you know who John Wooden is?
No.
Okay, John Wooden was um, the coach of the UCLA Bruins basketball team
Okay.
back in the day. Like he won more championships than anybody in the
Okay.
NCAA. But John Wooden and this guy in this conversation, he was saying he never taught people to win. He
Mm,
taught them how to build their character,
good.
and how he said when they if somebody passed the ball to the person that scored all the points,
Hmm.
usually the person who scored all the points had to know that when they came back down the court, they had to make sure they, thanked the person with a signal or whatever for doing it, because the person that scores all the points gets all the accolades, but the other person doesn't. So it's about the character. It's not about winning. And he's amazing. Like his isms, like his quotes and so on. You should look him up because he's amazing.
I will.
For this type of, building character and whatever. So, okay, this has been so much fun. So, what's in the near future for you? Tell us, because I think you shared a little bit before we got on air. And I think it's good for people to know who you're looking for as your audiences. And, maybe someone listening out there will be able to reach out and say, hey, I may have a gig for you, or are you interested in talking at this conference or whatever? We never know. So tell us what's on the horizon for you and what you're looking for.
Well, what I'm looking for is more opportunities to connect with people who desire culture. They desire a framework that will help them build a better life. And so if they are looking at their life right now and going, man, I know what results I want. I know what habits I would like to change. And it just doesn't seem like anything's changing. There's a strong likelihood that it's because in the character, in the root of all of it, is not a flaw, because I don't think character is good or bad. I mean, you can say, oh, character trait, loyalty, that's a good character trait. Well, not if you're loyal to a drug cartel. So loyalty is, right? They're neither here nor there. So it's just information. And sometimes we get way too sensitive about it. And we go, oh, how you do anything? That's a judgment statement. It's like, no, it's just an opportunity to reveal our character. We cannot know where we're going. Like if you punch into Google Maps, I want to go to this place, but you don't tell Google Maps where you're starting from, then you are not going to get there.
Right.
So my hope is that maybe somebody out there is listening and goes, hey, you know what? I run this corporate retreat, or I have this opportunity to bring you into a conference where you could speak to our employees or our association members, and you might be able to bring them this story and this framework so that they can create for themselves the life and the results that they really want. And it's an intentional choice, because it always comes back to choice.
It does, doesn't it? So how you do anything is how you do everything. And it's a great message to use as the base, really, because that's what it is. And I think that what you bring to the table is unique in how you're presenting it, how you're looking, for that. And I think that I wish you well with it, because I think it's such it's so unique. It's just unique and different. And next time you're doing something in Vancouver, can I stand at the stage and just watch? Because then I'll have a better idea of how to promote you.
I'm sure that we can do that. Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for being here, Andrew. Where can people find you?
AndrewAllenLive.com.
Perfect. AndrewAllenLive.com. I'll put it in the show notes. And of course, you're on LinkedIn, so they can find you there, strange as it may seem. But now that you're going into the corporate world, you need to be there, right?
That's the place.
Yeah. So we'll make sure that you're there in your best light and go from there. So thanks, Andrew. Thanks for being here. And for those who are listening or watching, reach out to Andrew if you think you have anything that can connect him with the right people, because I think this message is really important. And reach out to him anyway if you have anything that you want to share.
Yeah.
And remember to stay connected and be remembered. If today's show inspired you to make a new connection, why not start with me? Head over to LinkedIn and connect with me. Be sure to let me know you are a podcast listener, because I select one listener each month who connects with me on LinkedIn for a complimentary profile audit. Don't forget to stay connected and be remembered.